Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e and the trap trigger. You can have a look on page 120 to see details on traps in general, and there are details in this book on trap triggers, and it runs from about page 120 to page 121, and scattered around the book you'll see other stuff that relates to trap triggers. So here is how I would like to sort of approach the trap trigger. You're going to break it up into mechanical and magic. Now, mechanical can be anything from a tripwire to a pressure plate or a false wall. It could be turning the doorknob. It could be interfering with the lock mechanism. There are many different ways of having mechanical traps. Magical traps, the trigger for them can be anything from touching something or requiring a password to stop the trigger from being activated. So they're quite a bit more difficult than a mechanical trap, but magical traps can also have a mechanical trigger. That's fine. This video isn't really about the trap itself, it's about the trap trigger. And I want to talk specifically about the wisdom check and the perception check required to find the trigger for your trap. Because you're not going to spot the trap itself, you are more likely to see the trigger, if at all. And that is where we're going to deal with today. So there is the setback trap, the dangerous trap, and the deadly trap. And it gives you some DCs for dealing with, say, a setback trap in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And a setback is supposed to be like a DC 10, 11, and a dangerous trap to detect that would be something like a DC 12 to 15, and then something that is deadly is supposed to be a 16, 20. Now, I've already talked about traps before in a previous video, which was just basically an introduction about the fact that I don't really use a lot of traps. If I create traps that aren't already part of the adventure, I don't create setbacks and I don't create dangerous traps. I use deadly traps, because my view is that if somebody created a trap, they are going to want to actually make sure nobody can take their stuff. And so they're going to want a trap that is deadly in nature to keep people from taking it. And if all you do is maim or slow them down, they're still going to take your stuff. So putting a trap in, for me, it's going to be deadly. So part of the aspects of doing this is there is a reason why Dungeons & Dragons had traps and why they were so frightening. Because the traps that you used to see in the game, they were all really deadly. These traps did significant harm to a character. They resulted in death. That's why people hated traps. They were save and die. And I don't really view traps now as save and die, but I do view traps as being deadly, and at the very least I want to see a character fall down if they trigger a trap. If they actually fall down and die, then it's actually fulfilled the purpose of the trap that the person creating it had intended in the first place. You don't just put things out there that cause you harm to somebody just to annoy them. It's a weird concept. You know, when you think about traps and how they were put together in our past and history, traps were deadly. They killed people. They should be killing characters. Now, between levels 1 to 5, that can be a little bit of a problem, because it's very hard for a character to come back to life until they get access to revivify, raise dead, and reincarnate. So my view in terms of traps are, when you place a trap and it has a trigger, where are you going to place the trigger for the trap? Something like a doorknob or in the lock, on the door, a pressure plate in front of the door, a pressure plate or a tripwire wire before the door or around the door area, are very obvious locations for putting a trap trigger. Why would you put the trap trigger there? Because people are going to look for it there. If you put a trap trigger there, you really should be putting in like a false trap trigger, something that's easy to find so that the players think, oh, I got past the trap trigger, there can't be any trap. But where is the real trap trigger? It's on the other side of the door. It's the pressure plate when they step through, or the tripwire on the other side of the door. It's not the doorknob being turned that's the problem. It's when they close the door behind them that the trap is triggered. It's not the fact that they meddle around with the actual trap mechanism. There could be two traps in there. One that they will detect because it's very easy to find, but a second trap trigger that's much harder to find. And they might find both, or they might only find one. And that's what I mean by placing your trap triggers in such a way that they actually do what they need to do, which is actually trap and harm your players' characters. Because otherwise, what is the point in doing it? It's perception check, done, found it, investigation check, figure out how to disable it, and then your dexterity check or whatever you're going to use. I use a sleight of hand quite often, and they get rid of the trap trigger so that it doesn't go off. And it's done, and it's boring, and I don't think that trap triggers should be approached in that manner. So I would advise you, place your trap triggers in places people weren't expecting. If it's on a chest, don't put it on the lock or the lid. Put it underneath as a plate, so when they lift the treasure out, that is the trap trigger, the plate underneath. It's weight sensitive. Or when they lift the chest up and there is a pressure plate underneath there. Or when they touch the actual treasure, that's the trap trigger, not on the lock or opening the actual chest. Put your trap triggers in places they were not expecting to actually have to look. That's how traps should be approached. That is my view about how traps should be approached. Look, if you found this video helpful or informative, please share, like, and subscribe. Make a comment below if you have any questions about trap triggers, and I will do my best to answer those questions. And till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I found my dice. It took me, I knew it was down there. It was just down here waiting for me to pick it up, and